Trump doubles down on Putin criticism as Russia offers Ukraine a date and location for peace talks. Donald Trump has doubled down on his criticism of Vladimir Putin, adding he will know soon if the Russian leader is just tapping him along. The U.S. president told reporters at the White House that he believed his counterpart in Moscow may be intentionally delaying ceasefire talks, while he also expressed disappointment at heavy Russian bombing over the weekend. While Mr. Trump has so far stopped short of imposing sanctions to avoid, he says, screwing up negotiations, he warned his stance could change. The president said, "We're going to find out whether or not he's tapping us along or not, and if he is, we'll respond a little differently," adding that he can't tell you if Mr. Putin wanted peace. His comments in the Oval Office came minutes after Russia's foreign minister announced that the Kremlin had offered Ukraine a second round of talks on June 2 in Istanbul. Kyiv did not immediately respond to the proposal, which Sergei Lavrov said would see Moscow hand their proposals for a potential peace deal directly to Ukraine. "We hope that all those who are sincerely, and not just in words, interested in the success of the peace process will support holding a new round of direct Russian-Ukrainian talks in Istanbul," Mr. Lavrov added. Ukraine's defense minister Rustem Umerov said his government was not against further meetings, but called for Russia to deliver its memorandum to Kyiv beforehand. Meanwhile, Mr. Lavrov also hit out at Germany for agreeing to finance the production of long-range missiles in Ukraine, accusing Berlin of showing it is already a participant in the war. However, German leader Friedrich Merz declined to say that his country would hand over the Taurus missiles that Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, who was in Berlin, has long wanted. Ukraine's need for ammunition has become all the more urgent after Russia launched some of the largest aerial assaults of the war so far over the weekend. Russia said it had downed 296 Ukrainian drones over 13 regions overnight, while Ukraine said it had struck several weapon production sites. Elon Musk leaving role in the Trump administration. Elon Musk is leaving his role in the Trump administration. The billionaire revealed on X that his scheduled time as a special government employee was coming to an end. Musk had led the newly formed Department of Government Efficiency with the ambition of sacking federal workers and cutting red tape. "I would like to thank President Donald Trump for the opportunity to reduce wasteful spending," he wrote. A White House official said reports were accurate and his off-boarding would begin immediately. According to the Reuters news agency, Musk's exit was decided at a senior staff level and he did not have a formal conversation with the president before making his announcement on X. It came on the same evening a U.S. court blocked Trump from imposing sweeping global tariffs, with 3 judges ruling that he had exceeded his authority. Before the news broke, Elon Musk's father told that his son was not a very good politician. But speaking to Gillian Joseph on The World, Elon Musk insisted there was no rift between Elon and Donald Trump. Musk's time at Doge was controversial, with drastic cuts to America's humanitarian efforts sparking particular criticism. Questions have also been raised about whether the department has actually saved taxpayers as much money as suggested. Musk initially had ambitions to slash government spending by $2 trillion, but this was dramatically reduced to $1 trillion and then to just $150 billion. The 53-year-old also expressed frustration about resistance to his ideas and clashed with other senior members of the Trump administration. He recently told The Washington Post, "The federal bureaucracy situation is much worse than I realized. I thought there were problems, but it sure is an uphill battle trying to improve things in D.C. to say the least." By law, status as a special government employee means he could only serve for a maximum of 130 days, which would have ended around May 30th. Zelenskyy had hoped for Taurus missiles from Germany, but he's left Berlin far from empty-handed. When Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy came to Berlin, the big question was whether he would be leaving with a promise from Germany to supply Taurus long-range missiles. On this, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz remained tight-lipped, in public at least. But the Ukrainian leader left far from empty-handed. Germany has pledged another military support package, which it says is worth around 5 billion euros. It includes a promise to help Ukraine produce its own long-range weapons, a significant amount of which the German government says could be produced before the end of the year. The fact that some of these weapons are already used by the Ukrainian military means no extra training is needed. This also means, in theory, they could be used much more quickly than the Taurus system, which would involve extra instruction. Mr. Merz wouldn't give a rundown of the weapons included to avoid giving Moscow a heads up, but he did reiterate that range restrictions on weapons would be lifted to allow Kyiv to hit military targets in Russia. This is a big step for Germany, which has been cautious about doing anything to provoke nuclear-armed Moscow. The Kremlin was quick to respond, calling Germany's announcement a further provocation. While the support package isn't entirely new and has already been signed off by the German parliament, the details of what it includes are: in addition to helping with weapons production, there will be cash for continued Starlink connection and the delivery of air defense systems and ammunition. This is the fourth time Mr. Zelenskyy has visited Berlin, but his first meeting with the new chancellor in the city. The direct tone of Mr. Merz felt like a huge departure from his more cautious predecessor, Olaf Scholz. Mr. Merz was quick in his criticism of Russia, and what he said was a lack of commitment to peace talks. Ukraine has always been grateful for the huge amount of aid Germany has provided, but in the past appeared frustrated by the time it took for some decisions to be made. Princess Diana's family home targeted in arson attack. A farmhouse at the former family home of Princess Diana has been burnt down in a suspected arson attack, her brother has said. Earl Spencer posted pictures on social media of the building on fire and its gutted remains the next morning, saying he was stunned to find out it had been apparently burned down by vandals. The building was unoccupied at the time, he said. He thanked firefighters for doing their very best, and lamented it was so very sad that anyone would think this a fun thing to do. Firefighters were called to the scene in Mill Lane, Kingsthorpe, at about 1:30 a.m. on Wednesday and found a derelict two-story property fully on fire, Northamptonshire Fire and Rescue Service said. Crews arrived to find a derelict two-story property fully on fire. At the height of the fire, 4 crews from across the service wearing breathing apparatus used hose reel jets to contain the blaze and prevent it from spreading further, the service added. 1 crew remained on the scene into this afternoon with a water bowser to continue dampening down any remaining hotspots, and then returned to their station shortly before 1 p.m. Scientists embark on crucial study to save Britain's bees. Scientists from Kew Gardens are using a new study to track which trees bees prefer to try to stem the decline in our vital pollinators. Bee populations are falling all over the world due to a mixture of habitat loss, climate change, and the use of pesticides, with a devastating impact on our biodiversity and food production. But it's feared that not enough comprehensive, global research is being done to understand the issue or find solutions. Researchers based at Wakehurst in Sussex, known as Kew's Wild Botanic Garden, have begun placing advanced bioacoustic sensors in some of their trees to track which ones bees favor. They hope it will help urban planners know which trees to plant in built-up areas, as a way of combating the worrying decline in bee numbers. Pollination research lead Dr. Janine Griffiths-Lee said, "Nearly 90% of our flowering plants depend on the contribution of pollinators, but in the UK the population of flying insects in the last 20 years has decreased by around 60%. It's really hard to be able to put a figure on the decline of our pollinators, but we do know that globally the number is declining. And with that comes crop yield instability and the loss of an essential ecosystem service." Their new, non-invasive monitors listen for the buzz created by bees' wing beats, building up heat maps of the most popular spots. Dr. Griffiths-Lee said, "If you think about the tree's footprint, it's very small, but they're huge 3D structures covered in pollen and nectar, which are essential resources of pollinators." So we really wanted to think about which are the best trees for bees for us to plant, and that can inform landscape planners, urban architects. 8 different species of tree were chosen for the study, including horse chestnut and lime trees, with a mixture of native and non-native species. The scientists have also been gathering DNA from pollen, which also helps them to map which plants and flowers the insects prefer. Wakehurst's director, Susan Rakes, calls the 535-acre estate a living laboratory and says the project is all about searching for nature-based solutions to the impacts of climate change. The stakes couldn't be higher, really. We know that we're facing these twin crises of biodiversity loss and climate change, she added. We need to be able to understand, as the climate changes, which plants from warmer climes will be good here in the UK for pollinators in the future. If all of our native plants are struggling, then we need to find new sources of pollen for us all to survive. Arctic melt expected to push up sea levels around Britain. The Arctic is warming 3.5 times faster than the global average, scientists have warned, raising new security threats for the UK. Melting Arctic ice is opening up more routes for shipping and military vessels, and the potential to drill for new reserves of gas, oil, and natural minerals in an otherwise virtually unspoiled ecosystem. The continent has long been warming faster than the rest of the world. As the sea ice disappears, its white surface that reflects sunlight gives way to darker ocean underneath that absorbs the heat instead. Today, the United Nations World Meteorological Organization, WMO, warned the Arctic is on course to warm 3.5 times faster than the rest of the world over the next 5 years, making it at least 2.4 Celsius warmer than the recent average. It comes as the UK's Foreign Secretary David Lammy tours the region to assess threats from Russia and climate change, calling it an increasingly important frontier for geopolitical competition and trade. On Tuesday, he announced new UK funding to work with Iceland on monitoring Arctic waters, for AI to detect hostile state activity and for research on the impact on the UK. Arctic melt is expected to push up sea levels around Britain's coastline and fuel worse coastal flooding. It will shift the jet stream, disrupting the UK's weather system in ways not yet fully understood. Klaus Dodds, geopolitics professor at Royal Holloway, said less sea ice in the Arctic will likely attract heightened commercial and military activity by third parties that are not allies of the UK, primarily Russia and China. He said the UK should prepare to operate in the region without the US as a reliable ally, while Russia will continue to target critical infrastructure in the North Atlantic and European Arctic, all of which may be ever more accessible. Ed Arnold from security think tank RUSI said further melt will mean that the Russians would have more control over the northern sea route via which ships can access waters around Britain. The security threat is changing pretty fundamentally as vessels can more easily travel through the Arctic to waters containing gas pipelines or data cables supplying Europe, he added. The WMO report also warned a dangerous new warming threshold was on the horizon for the first time. 10 years ago, under the landmark Paris Agreement, world leaders promised to try to limit warming to no more than 2 Celsius above pre-industrial levels, and ideally stick to 1.5 Celsius. At the time, both those thresholds felt a long way off. But just 10 years later, today's report forecasts for the first time ever a chance of breaching 2 Celsius of warming at some point in the next 5 years. The chances are exceptionally unlikely, probably no more than 1%, said Professor Adam Scaife from the Met Office Hadley Centre, who worked on the report. But such a forecast would have been effectively impossible just a few years ago, in a sign of how quickly the climate is changing. Professor Scaife added, "It is shocking in that sense that 2 degrees is possible. However, it's not shocking because we thought it might be plausible at this stage, and indeed it is. And unless something changes dramatically, 2 Celsius will become increasingly likely, increasingly soon," the authors warned, driving more extreme weather and migration as homelands become unlivable. The WMO also warned temperatures are likely to again hit 1.5 Celsius above pre-industrial levels over the next 5 years, after doing so temporarily in 2024.